Imagine this. You are standing in a room with a dangerous man. He has hostages, a weapon, and nothing to lose. One wrong word, one wrong move, and the situation turns deadly. Now here's the twist. You can't use threats. You can't use force. Your only weapon is your words. Sounds intense, right? What if I told you that the same negotiation tactics used by the FBI's top hostage negotiators could help you in everyday life? Whether you are asking for a raise, closing a deal, or handling a difficult conversation with a loved one, these strategies can give you the upper hand. Chris Voss, a former FBI negotiator, spent decades perfecting the art of negotiation, not through aggression, but through psychology, emotional intelligence, and tactical empathy. In this video, I will reveal the game-changing lessons from his book, Never Split the Difference. But here's the real shocker. Most people think negotiation is about compromise. Voss says that is the fastest way to lose. So what is the alternative? Stay with me because once you learn these secrets, you will never negotiate the same way again. Let's start with why this book matters. Most people make one fatal mistake in negotiations and don't even realize it. Most people think negotiation is only for lawyers, salespeople, or high-powered executives. But the truth is, you negotiate every single day. You are negotiating when you ask for a raise, convince your boss to approve a project, or even try to get your kids to bed on time. The problem is that most people approach it the wrong way. They believe negotiation is about arguing, proving a point, or meeting in the middle. But let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like you won a negotiation, only to realize later that you gave up too much? Or maybe you left a deal feeling frustrated, thinking you could have gotten a better outcome. That is exactly why this book matters. Chris Voss, after years of negotiating life-or-death hostage situations, discovered a shocking truth. People don't make decisions based on logic. They make them based on emotion. And if you understand how to use that to your advantage, you can control almost any negotiation. The key is not to push harder or talk more. It is to listen, read between the lines, and guide the other person's emotions in the right direction. And that is what we are about to break down. Let's start with the most powerful negotiation tool, tactical empathy. Chapter 1, The Power of Tactical Empathy. In 1993, an armed bank robber in Brooklyn took 3 hostages and demanded a getaway car. The NYPD surrounded the building, preparing for a standoff. The tension was unbearable. One wrong move and lives would be lost. Chris Voss stepped into the scene, facing a man with a gun and 3 innocent hostages. Tension filled the air. One wrong move could be fatal. But instead of using authority or force, he did something unexpected. He listened, and in that moment, everything changed. He spoke calmly, acknowledged the robber's frustrations, and repeated some of his words back to him. Slowly, the robber's tone softened. After hours of careful negotiation, he surrendered without harming anyone. This wasn't luck. It was a strategy Voss had spent years perfecting. Most people think negotiation is about proving a point, but the secret is making the other person feel heard and understood. People who feel like you get them lower their defenses and become more open to your suggestions. One of the simplest ways to do this is mirroring. If your boss says, "We don't have the budget for raises right now," responding with, "No budget for raises," encourages them to keep talking and reveal more. Another powerful tool is labeling, where you identify the other person's emotions and say them out loud. If a client seems hesitant, saying, "It sounds like you're worried about the long-term commitment," helps them feel understood and lowers resistance. Even silence can be a weapon. Most people rush to fill awkward pauses, but staying quiet forces the other person to reveal more. These techniques work in FBI negotiations as well. Imagine you're buying a car. Instead of saying, "Can you lower the price?" Try, "It seems like you're confident this is the best offer available." Then stay silent. More often than not, the salesperson will start justifying the price or offering discounts. This is the power of tactical empathy. It's not about dominating the conversation, it's about guiding it. But what if the best way to move a negotiation forward was to get a no instead of a yes? Chapter 2. Why no is more powerful than yes. Most people think the key to negotiation is getting the other person to say yes as quickly as possible. They push for agreement, stacking small yes responses, hoping it will lead to a final deal. But Chris Voss discovered something surprising. This approach often backfires. When people feel pressured to say yes, they get defensive. It feels like a trap, like they are being manipulated or forced into something they are not ready for. But when they say no, they feel safe. They feel in control. Paradoxically, that is when they become more open to real negotiation. Voss recommends asking questions that push the other person toward agreement instead. Imagine you need to get on a call with someone. Instead of saying, "Do you have a moment to talk?" ask, "Is now a bad time to talk?" This is a simple shift, but a powerful one. When people can say no, they don't feel pressured and are more likely to engage instead of shutting down. This technique is even more powerful in high-stakes situations. Voss once negotiated with a kidnapper who refused to cooperate. Instead of pushing for a deal, he asked, "Have you given up on getting what you want?" Expecting pressure, the kidnapper was caught off guard. Saying no gave him a sense of power, but also forced him to rethink the situation. That single question changed the direction of the negotiation, eventually leading to the hostage's release. This approach works everywhere. If you are negotiating a salary, instead of asking, "Can we discuss a raise?" try, "Would it be ridiculous to consider a raise based on my performance?" If you are trying to close a business deal, instead of saying, "Can we make this work?" say, "Would it be impossible to find a solution that benefits us both?" When people feel like they can say no, they become more willing to say yes. Now that we know why getting a no can be so powerful, let's look at another game-changing strategy that makes the other person feel in control, even when you guide the entire conversation. Chapter 3. The illusion of control. People hate being told what to do. The moment they feel pressured, they resist. The more you push, the more they push back. But what if there was a way to make people feel in control, even when you are steering the conversation? Chris Voss calls this the illusion of control, a strategy that makes the other person feel like they are making the decisions while you are guiding them toward the desired outcome. Forget making demands. Instead, ask what and how questions that make the other person solve the problem for you without even realizing it. Imagine you are negotiating a deal. Instead of saying, "I need a lower price," you ask, "How am I supposed to justify this price to my team?" This flips the script. Instead of shutting you down, the other person starts thinking of ways to make it work. They might suggest a discount, a bonus, or better terms without you even asking for it directly. Voss used this technique in high-stakes negotiations with criminals and terrorists. In one case, he needed a kidnapper to agree to a deal. Instead of saying, "Release the hostage," he asked, "What will happen if this negotiation fails?" That question forced the kidnapper to confront the reality of the situation, making him reconsider his position. This works in everyday situations too. If you ask your boss for more responsibility, instead of saying, "I deserve a promotion," ask, "What would it take for me to move to the next level?" If a client is hesitating on a contract, instead of pushing them, ask, "How can we structure this to make it a win for both of us?" Giving the other person the illusion of control makes them feel empowered, but in reality, you shape the conversation. But even with all these strategies, sometimes negotiations stall. That's because a hidden factor often can change everything, something Voss calls a black swan. Chapter 4. The hidden power of black swans. In every negotiation, hidden information can completely change the outcome. Chris Voss calls these black swans the unknown factors that, once uncovered, can shift the entire dynamic in your favor. Most people assume they know everything they need to close a deal. But Voss argues that the most powerful leverage is often something you don't even realize exists. The trick is to ask the right questions, listen carefully, and look for emotional clues that reveal what truly matters to the other person. During a kidnapping case, Voss was negotiating for the life of an American being held for ransom overseas. The kidnappers were demanding an impossible sum of money. At first it seemed hopeless, but after digging deeper, Voss and his team uncovered a crucial detail. One of the kidnappers had a strong cultural belief that killing a hostage would bring bad luck to his family. That single piece of information changed everything. Instead of negotiating the ransom amount, Voss focused on reinforcing the idea that releasing the hostage was in the kidnapper's best interest. Within days, the hostage was freed without the ransom being paid. Most people enter negotiations assuming they understand the other side's motives. But what if the real reason a client hesitates to make a deal isn't money, but fear of making the wrong decision? What if your boss isn't rejecting your raise because of budget constraints, but because they think you might leave the company soon? The key to finding these hidden truths is asking open-ended questions like, what else is important to you? And listening for subtle emotional cues. The biggest mistake in negotiation is assuming that everything is on the table. The real power comes from uncovering what isn't being said. When you do, you gain the ultimate advantage. That brings us to the final, most important lesson. Why negotiation isn't about winning or losing, but creating a deal that makes the other person want to say yes. Most people believe great negotiators win by talking more, arguing better, or being more persuasive. But the truth? The world's best negotiators do something completely different, something that goes against everything you've been taught. And once you learn this, you'll never approach negotiation the same way again. The best negotiators don't out-talk others, they out-listen them. And here's the final advice. The goal isn't to win, it's to create a deal where the other person wants to say yes. The fastest way to do that? Make them feel heard. People don't change their minds because of facts. They change their minds when they feel safe, respected, and controlled. If you can give them that, you can guide almost any negotiation to the desired outcome. Now here's a challenge. Think of one upcoming negotiation in your life. It could be a job offer, a business deal, or even a tough conversation with a friend. How will you use these tactics to get a better outcome? The biggest lesson from Never Split the Difference is that negotiation isn't about pushing harder, it's about understanding deeper. If you master tactical empathy, you'll build trust faster and break down resistance. If you embrace the power of no, you'll make people feel safe and in control. If you use calibrated questions, you'll guide conversations without triggering defensiveness. And if you uncover black swans, you'll gain the leverage that changes everything. Now here's my challenge for you. Remember the last time you had to negotiate something, such as a job offer, a business deal, or even convincing a friend. Did you unknowingly make one of these mistakes? Drop it in the comments and let's talk about it. And if you want to take your negotiation skills even further, check out The Art of Negotiation, How to Get What You Want by 𝗪𝗵𝗁. It builds on the principles from this book and teaches you how to stay calm, persuasive, and adaptable in any high-stakes conversation. If you found this valuable, please subscribe. Next week, we'll discuss another game-changing book that could completely transform your thoughts. See you then.